the reports coming from those schools are dismal, to say the least. Our correspondents have gone across some local government areas. There are no chairs, there are no learning materials, the roof is caving in. Some kids learn on makeshift chairs or whatever it is with blocks. Yes, blocks. We've not talked about hygiene. We've not talked about the compound, what it looks like. And these are issues that, bear on our children and their reality today and what it would mean for them in the future. So the matter we're talking about this morning would start with free education, the idea of a free education, because the River State government actually said the education, primary education, elementary, first part of the elementary is free. That's first part of secondary rather. So elementary 1 to 9 is free. But we heard parents saying that they have to pay for this, pay for that. There was a school, that was some months ago, and some parents complained, and some others said, no, we agreed that we should pay something. So they're donating to fuel the generator, they're donating to, it's unbelievable what they're doing. In fact, technically they're running the school. And then you want to ask, so what's the board doing about it? Don't they get funding to carry out these things, the needs of the schools? Ikechi Nwogu joins me in the studio this morning. Good morning, Ikechi.
Good morning, Enoh.
All right, so let's talk about this issue of free education in River State, for example. Let's start from before now. Was there a time in the state where we actually had free education in the real sense?
It's beginning to seem like a political thing. So every administration comes in and thinks that it's the necessary thing to do. So if the incoming administration, for example, after the next elections, doesn't consider free education as a thing, it seems like he has failed or she has failed, whoever the governor is. So it has come very strongly upon the mindsets of our people that education is an entitlement and it must be free. But when we say free education in itself is not a bad thing. It's part of the United Nations requirements or visions for the future for everyone to go to school. So let's eradicate illiteracy. But then free education in Nigeria or in River State should really be evaluated. Are we really eradicating illiteracy? Because there's a difference between schooling and learning. There's a difference between schooling and education. So education doesn't just focus on the mental capacities of the child, but it takes care of the total man. And so we have people who are schooled, but they are not educated. Okay, so it becomes a concern. So what are you really trying to
it's beyond having the children in a classroom, where the classroom is
it's beyond that. It's beyond that.
And we have even failed at that, by the way, because if the we have videos, we have pictures, we have these reports, they're online. If you go to Facebook, if you go to our website, nigeriainfo.fm, you see those videos, see those pictures. So it's not them say it is what it is.
I'm not sure that there's sufficient attention being paid to education in these parts. It now seems like the place next door. So there's something going on next door. It seems like ABC, I should get my child in there. Or otherwise, there's another kind of thinking. If it's not expensive, then it's not good enough. So parents want to pay very much for education, without sitting down to get feedback on the substance that is being acquired by the children. So your children speak right, they are schooled or they are educated. Your children can pass the exams. And so at the end, there's an end point to the learning process, which is the external exams. So if after paying such huge fees, you still have to hire someone to assist your child in the exams, then there is a gap. Because every child, the gain of the learning process is that the child should develop some sense of independence, should be able to find a life for himself, should be able to communicate for himself and all that. If your child cannot do that effectively, then there is a gap. And we're here to identify with gaps, what gaps there are. So there are many gaps that we have seen in the Rivers school system, one of which you highlighted, the infrastructural gap. So take, for example, a situation where the child is required to learn in an open field. It begins to rain. What happens? I'm saying open field because it's comparable to what happens with a leaking roof.
Yeah.
And so the child may not learn on a Monday or on a Tuesday because there was some heavy downpour yesterday, and then the classroom is flooded, and they have to make a makeshift arrangement. And for how long can this go on? Which is why infrastructure is a major highlight to learning, to the learning process. And some of these things require just minor fixes. But are they fixed? What's the response timing like? Are they fixed as promptly, as quickly as, because wear and tear is a major cause of life.
Yeah.
And so things would wear out, the wind would blow off the roofs and all that. It's expected. But what is the plan to quickly fix it? Because it's important to us. It's a necessity. But when this is not considered a necessity, then it could seem like it's not one of the main things. And that's what we always suffer in these parts.
I'm wondering, when you talked about the wind blowing off the roof, I wanted to ask, doesn't that mean that it wasn't properly done in the first place? Because we have buildings that have stood for years and nothing has blown off the roof. And there's the same storms, the same winds. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So infrastructure, you say, is key. What about the teaching staff? Because, there was a report we did some time ago, and the commissioner said that they had a certain number of teachers in a certain school. And I said, well, I find that very unconvincing, because I've been in Nigeria long enough to know that this is how things are. So when you say that you have this number of teachers in a school and the school is just junior secondary, then you begin to ask, is it one child per teacher, that kind of thing. But then again, teaching staff, during that conversation, something came up in my mind, and I was saying that if the previous administration did employ 13,000 teachers, like they talk about all the time, they reference all the time, where are those teachers?
It might be true to say that the teachers are there, but life happens. Teachers will die because they are human beings, just like it is with every other profession. But how quickly are they replaced? When a teacher is laid off, how quickly is he replaced? Because we have decried, for several years, we have decried the case of teacher shortfall. So I've interacted directly with teachers. You have schools where I was speaking with the principal, and he said to me there are just 3 teachers in the entire school.
What kind of school, please?
It's, of course, a public school.
No, is it a secondary, primary school?
It's a secondary school.
And they have 3 teachers?
Just 3 teachers at the time. At the time. Now, it no longer is the case. That was before the 13,000 recruitment. Okay, but I'm trying to make you understand that for there to have been 3 teachers in a school, more than 3 teachers were recruited. Now, there are cases where teachers are recruited for the villages, and they choose to stay in Port Harcourt, so they don't go. And so it calls for supervision, it calls for better monitoring, okay?
Yeah, but I also hear that they have deals that they enter into with the head teachers, so you settle, and then it's okay, you sort of like, they mark you in, and then at the end of the month, you take your cut, I take my cut.
Yeah, now if that holds true, right? Who's supervising who? And then at the end of the day, someone is being shortchanged just for deals, just for money. But with better planning and monitoring, you ensure that all of this. So if I am assigned to a school, okay, in some remote area, okay, is that remote area so far that the ministry cannot monitor the activities going on? So you have cases where I studied fine and applied arts, but I'm required to teach fine arts, I'm required to teach biology, I'm required to teach physics, even chemistry. And these subjects have their technicalities, and so not everyone can handle them because there are few hands. So just do whatever, read the notes and all that. It's learning taking place. That's why I said there's a difference between schooling and learning. So I am in a school system, and efforts are being made to transfer knowledge to me, but it's not being transferred because the process is not right, okay? The techniques are not right, because I could have a teacher who's adept at a certain thing, but if delivery is shy, then I just wouldn't understand, and he doesn't let me ask questions in class. Hello, auntie, I don't understand. He shouts at me and so I'm intimidated, and I shut up. And so there's no transfer of knowledge from the intelligent man to the learning student, and these are gaps. So when we have teacher shortfall, what efforts are being made to address this? So it's not you recruiting 1 million teachers once in an entire century. It's about the continuous process of recruiting teachers to fit into all the available gaps.
Yeah, but what does it look like the monitoring is such a Herculean task? Because if you're not able to monitor the teaching staff, means you're not also able to monitor the instruction materials. that go there.
Monitoring is a thing, is another thing, okay? Because are there patrol vehicles? Are there vehicles? You need the logistics for monitoring. You need the vehicles. You need them to be fueled. You need them. You need drivers for them, okay? And all of that. And so I'm happy sometimes I get to the Ministry of Education and these vehicles are out. I have some friends. Okay, where is this person? Oh, she's gone for monitoring. It's a routine thing. And so efforts are being made. I mean, all credit to the administrators. Efforts are being made to monitor to survive. But sometimes, like the complaint is, just the same way the principals would have to, out of pocket, pay for chalk or for markers and all that. That is the same way the monitors would, out of pocket, fuel the vehicles, service the vehicles. So the vehicles will break down. The vehicles will probably get accidented. It's like wear and tear. Who maintains them? And how prompt is the response? So when I call for a maintenance of my vehicle, how quickly am I responded to, and how quickly will the repair be done so I can continue with the work? Is there a make-up arrangement so when one vehicle is down, another one, or I have to depend on my colleague to borrow his vehicle? This vehicle has been assigned to Enoh and I'm going to Eleme, so I have to wait or otherwise design another scheme or probably use my personal vehicle, and who's taking care of all of that? So if government cannot maintain the government vehicles, what happens to my private vehicle? And so these are issues, okay, that call for better planning and better evaluation of the system we're running.
Yeah, but I mean, there are going to be these challenges, I know, but what role does communication play? I mean, gadgets and all. If someone can video something, so you write a letter, for example, to the ministry and say, oh, we don't have this, we don't have that. Then you send a video or photos and say, this is how. I mean, if you see the pictures of the roof and the classroom, the children had to be told or taught that it's okay to sit on a block, molded block. For me, it's very disturbing. So what happened to the chairs? What happened to the desk? What happened to the building? I mean, how did it become so dilapidated that we now have to resort to that degrading level of self-help? There's self-help of, okay, maybe I can bring my chair from home. But then there's another level of, let's now sit on the floor. Some of them actually were sitting on the floor. What does that even communicate to the children?
Well, it's funny in this case. These are children, and we must know too that they are children. So sometimes children jump on the desks, sometimes they are fighting, and sometimes they are playing, and then they destroy these desks. Sometimes the school has an occasion for which the children are required to take the desks outside, and because they are children and no one says take them in, they leave them out, and then the rains come in and all of that. You have the sports competition, you have different competitions, maybe sometimes the assembly for which the desks will be taken out. In the course of carrying the desks and all that, so that is wear and tear going on. And which is why, the budget, whatever that is for education, has to bring into consideration the fact that all of these things, there's a huge demand. There's a huge demand, especially on repairs or maintenance of facilities. There's a huge demand
and personnel.
And personnel and all of these things, okay, including research, including resources. So when we want to go deep into education, we want to get serious with the future. Education must be intentional. Okay, there must be that handshake between the present and the future. And so someone must sit down somewhere and say, what kinds of children do you want to raise? Do you want to raise anybody's and anyhow children, or you want to raise children who would go out there and compete with the rest of the world and win? Because we seem to have left success to the hands and lives and times of the children. And so if you succeed, fine. If you don't succeed, fine. I've done my bit. But no, it's not good enough. There should be a link between efforts and results. Are the results being monitored? What have been the performances of children? I'm not talking of one child per time or two. I'm not even talking of children in the private schools. What have been the performances of children in government schools over the past decade? And how can we grow that performance map? How can we improve on the standards of success? Not once in a while, not anonymous success, but look, it's intentional. Okay, let's have this as a test case. children from so school, let's invest so much in research, so much in resources. What kinds of research? Look at the case of the pandemic. It's a celebrated case where a lot of children were shut out of learning for whole periods, right? Because there were no gadgets. In the private schools, you had some gadgets. They were bracing up to the world's best, virtual learning and all that. But then at some point, we had computers provided in the schools. Where are these computers now? Were they being used? If they weren't bad, nobody's even talking about that because we've not even talked of roofs. It could be likely that the roofs blew off and then the rains beat on the computers and nobody has replaced them. Okay, what about the toilets? We've had cases where children would leave the school premises to go find somewhere to defecate because the toilets are bad, they are broken. The same system of wear and tear. And so it's a whole burden. There has to be that holistic view to education. Education is not just what happens within the four walls of the classroom, in front of the board and the chalkboard, right?
That's when you find one.
Yeah, in the course of learning, you get first. You want to ease yourself, okay? In the course of learning, the girl child, some young children in primary school, don't even know what the menstrual flow is. And then some children stay away from school. I've had encounters with children who stay away from school. Why? Because they saw their visitor, their monthly visitor, on time, and they didn't know what this was. And so they just stayed away. Okay, or otherwise within that period of the month when this is happening. So is there a dispensing unit, is there a sick bay where sanitary pads are issued to the students? What is the provision for learning to ensure that learning flows, okay, through the calendar of the academic frame?
Ikechi Nwogu is my guest. We're Nigerian People Hackers, and we're talking about the state of education focus in River State. The idea of a free education, is it even happening? Looking at infrastructure and personnel as well. Commercial has to play, and then the lines will be open. Don't forget, we're live on Facebook at Nigeria Info PH. You can drop your comments there on WhatsApp 08090306416. My name is Enoh Enigma. Stay tuned.
You are tuned in to 92.3 Nigeria Info.
We start you off in the morning, keep you all day, and keep you company all night long. We are
92.3
Nigeria Info. The first talk station of the nation.
This is the Morning Crossfire on 92.3 Nigeria Info.
We've got 20 minutes to be done with this conversation. My name is Enoh Enigma, and we're talking free education at River State, a case in point. I've got an educationist in the studio, Mr. Ikechi Nwogu, and we have been talking. Time now to have you join the conversation. 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0003, 0817-923-0009. Hector says the government is failing in all sectors, especially the area of education, because lack of maintenance culture. All the facilities put in place by the previous administration have been damaged. What happened to the billions budgeted for the Ministry of Education in the past 6 years of this administration? This is a lot of reading, but let's see. And now, based on the details we saw of the federal government school feeding program, federal government claims to feed kids in about 700 primary schools. Based on supply of practical materials, River State government previously shared to its schools. I know the senior secondary schools have are roughly 300, meaning junior secondary school is about 300 as well, though UBE is first established before secondary school. Basically, a minimum of 1,300, that's 700 plus 300 plus 300 government-owned schools. Let's assume the 13,000 teachers remain in the system, okay, those remaining about 8,000, added to the famous 13,000 without assuming deaths, absconders, sacks. We're talking about 21,000 teachers. Let's do the math and see the average number of teachers each government school is expected to have. 16 teachers per school. If Olanada Junior Secondary School alone has 82, surely it has depopulated another school of this expected number of teachers. Text and that in Samuel says, look, we shall continue to blame the government, but it's not changing anything. Have we taken time to ask villagers, the students, what happened to seats provided them? Some youth in villages use these seats for meetings. What footballs destroy them, park them as firewood. How many times do we place seats in our houses? No one cares because it's government property, they can destroy it. That is the result. So this issue of is government property. I mean, I'm wondering how. Okay, so first of all, the question we should be asking is how are they even able to do that? How are they able to access the schools? Because we have private schools in River State. They have doors, they have windows, they have fences, they have gates, they are locked, and they have security there. So what does that say? How do they gain access into this school compounds?
Most of the school fields are thrown open for practice. So the school field is like the community field. It was before the renovation. So everyone knows that 4 p.m. or 2 p.m. the footballers come in and they begin to train, and then there's maybe a religious program where people come in. So people always have access to the schools. I know that at some point, before you gain access for anything, you apply to the Ministry of Education. Yeah, and it was really a strict process. I personally have been told no, and I respected it. Yeah. So, but what is going on now? What is the level? It comes back to monitoring. Okay, so you want to use the facility. You want the gates to be opened to you. You write a letter to the Ministry of Education. The signature of the commissioner or someone, the PAMSEC or someone is appended. You return the letter to the school principal, and then he grants you access. Okay, I've had cases where even the commissioner appended the signature, but the principal said, "I'm so sorry, I can't." So that's a process. It was respected. But right now, it's like the school system is too big for the ministry to handle. So oversight is lacking. Now, we also had cases of engagement. I've had cases where the private sector comes in to say, okay, let's adopt the school, for example. Yeah. So we're going to furnish the school, we're going to make sure, and you see these things working. But what happened to those engagements? Because the truth is there are other stakeholders, critical stakeholders, including the students, including the parents. How much do we engage these stakeholders? How much do we appeal to the multinational companies as part of their CSR arrangement to say, please come adopt one school, come adopt two schools, and we could create these schools as models. Okay, I've had organizations in the past that have gone to the Ministry of Education to say, can we adopt a school for a pilot scheme or something? The ministry said, we'll get back to you, and they never got back. So when you have such cases, you begin to see something that is somewhat more complex than we can even discuss on radio, because there has to be a more serious approach to delivering the dividends of education. Education should not be politicized. Education is not that ministry where just about anyone is placed there to either monitor the processes or oversee the processes or engage in the processes. No, it has to be with the experts. Experts not by title, experts by passion, experts by experience, experts by knowledge, experts by commitment. Okay, the commitment must be there. Beyond answering an educationist, okay, what is the passion you have for teaching and learning? How do you ensure that your values are being transmitted to the very least students in the least class, in the least school?
Talking about adopting schools, I mean, I'm even wondering why we have these people in political offices and no one is adopting the school. You're not adopting your primary school, you're not adopting your secondary school, you're not adopting anything. Because if everyone who's occupied any political office in the state, for example, adopts a school, I'm sure that half of the problem is already solved.
What demands are placed on them? The people seem grossly distracted. So we're getting to the political season. What are our demands? We want rice. We want money. We want house rent paid. We don't place demands on education. So I'm sure that the budget for rice and wrapper, okay, would be much more than the budget for equipping the neighborhood school. Maybe one or two school benches. Maybe one or two chalkboards, maybe replacing the roof or something, maybe the bulbs, the fans, some toilet facilities.
They don't have roofs, they don't have fans.
Even if I tell you the truth, we the people could be held liable for this, because even if some political interest holder, right, goes in to replace the toilets, what will we say? Is that all he could do? Now toilet we go chop, and all of that, and they begin to make mockery. So our interest as a Nigerian people
is what is reflecting.
Yeah, what is reflecting in what we are seeing as results.
Well, 0817-923-0002. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Enoh. My name is David Webb.
We're listening.
And I'm calling you from Enoh. Yeah, I like to start my contribution with a quote of Malcolm X. He said, education is our passport to the future. But tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. I now ask a simple question. If indeed what Malcolm X has said, we are really listening to it. Now see that poor woman who has used her voice to see how she can bring change to that school in a change. The next thing you hear from busybody and psychopaths who want to suspend her or send her to one interior village. And if that is allowed to happen without we collectively as a people protecting her, the next person will not want to speak. So please and please, Nigeria also, see how you can protect that woman's interest. Let me leave that aside. We are looking at the infrastructure of the school itself that will also attract the children to the school. And this infrastructure is there, they are not there. Then the politicians, what kind of seriousness do they put into the school? anything that matters to them, to get it expressed. Let me quickly give you a very good example, please. The governor of Bayelsa State, Senator Doediri, came into office barely 3 months. He went and collected 2.9 billion naira loan, almost 3 billion, not for education, not for anything, but for cars. That's their personal benefit. Are you with me?
Wow.
Then the state, as I speak with you now, does not have a functional library. Is it not appalling? You have established a school, science and technical college, without equipping it. How much will it cost the government to equip it? To use the money to buy cars. You build a school without recreational facility. And it is amazing that government will give directives or guidelines to private people who want to build schools. For instance, where they say you must have at least a maximum of 5 plots of land. The government is using a half plot of land to build government primary school. You need a PA here without even a recreational facility.
All right, let's move to Kel. Thank you, David West. Good morning, Kel.
Yeah, good morning, Enoh.
Good morning.
Yeah, so Enoh, I think I would just want to go with the last line of thoughts of your guest in the studio. That's what I wanted to say. I think the demands of the people is not reflecting in our actions. We collect wrapper. My mother collects wrapper. We collect 2 cups of rice and an onion and all that. What else do you want? I'll give you a very good example, something that happened most recently. Yes, there might be several thoughts to this, but a local government chairman was elected, and the first thing he deemed fit to do for his people is to buy cars for councillors or whatever, whose salary, for example, is about 10 times or even 20 times what a teacher that's been teaching for over 15 years is collecting as salary. And the people are hailing him. People are praising him. People are congratulating him for taking such a huge step to buy brand new cars for councillors. And if you go to that local government today, the schools are in terrible condition. So I'm not blaming the politicians alone. I'm blaming the people. When we are ready, prior to election, Dio will be in the radio asking, should we vote for competence? And then you see people come and tell you that, no, that person does not have structure. He does not have political structure.
Ground.
We have voted for political structure. And that's what we keep enjoying the structure until we're ready to vote for competence and demand for the right kind of things from our leaders and be accountable. Else, we'll be enjoying our flyovers, we'll be enjoying our cars for our councillors. Thank you very much, General.
Thank you, Kel, for calling. Message here on WhatsApp. Let's see. And so many teachers retire and die every year. Make your findings. Do you know that we have very few teachers now on level 13? No teachers in level 14, 15 anymore. They've all retired. Have you asked why the vacancy up there? No promotions, no replacements. Uche Wachku send that in from Port Harcourt. Good morning, Enoh, and the guest in the studio. His name is Ikechi Nwogu. Says the school system in university is very bad. There are numerous categories to name. First, a school to be for a school to function adequately needs good teachers. That's another thing, good teachers. Motivated teachers. Secondly, the standard of the school premises is one of the major structures that enhance students' ability to understand teaching. University government should look critically on employment in order to maintain quality education in the state. I'm an auxiliary teacher in my grade school, and I can tell you how children are going through tough times in the learning system. Adonai sent that in. One being of the issue of state of schools in education, this current government brings up the schools where they've done some massive renovation, like Mokuta Girls. Agreed. But acknowledge they've made effort, but is it enough? Is it commensurate to what is needed? It's so disheartening that all the governors, presidents, and local government chairmen attended these schools. So why not fix these schools? Just because their children are not in the schools. Send that in. We have Gabriel. He's left the building. Uche, good morning. Final call.
Yeah, good morning. Please, concerning this issue of teachers and all that, I think we don't need to blame, put the total blame on government. We should also blame ourselves. As I'm talking to you now, I know 3 persons who was employed as a teacher. Today, they don't go to school. They only rely on the salary, and they are working somewhere, and which is not ideal. Should we also blame the government for that?
Yes, because if I employ you and I'm paying you salaries, there's a demand on your time. So if I find out that you're not working, I'm going to sack you because you're a criminal, you're a thief, and you don't have any business stealing my money and stealing the lives of children that we're supposed to be building for the future. It is the government's responsibility to monitor. The government pays billions to Julius Berger, fix Rumokuta or fix Rumokuro flyover. The government does that to inspect. He does that for a reason. Do you understand? So when I give money, I must monitor to ensure that it is used judiciously. So it is their responsibility to monitor.
Can I ask you one question?
I'm listening.
If something is paining you, because most people that are even calling, I know somebody that just called who was employed as a teacher, but the person does not go to school. And today he's complaining how schools are bad and how schools are big. First of all, do to yourself what others will not do to you.
That's on one side. But when you employ somebody to do a work for you, they must do the job. I have a maid in my house. You're supposed to clean. I can't go out, come back and still clean now. What are you doing there?
This is the issue we are talking of.
So the government is permitting it.
Your conscience should prick you for.
And when you choose not to use your conscience, my reasoning should make me kick you out. I pay you. So the money is for what?
The SS money.
Ah, all right. That's why we're in SS trouble and SS.
I don't want us to miss the point, right? We're making it look as though there's finger pointing.
No, he's saying that we have this issue, and it's a real issue.
Yeah.
Teachers not showing up in classrooms. But I'm asking him too, if we pay you, I employ you for this service, and you're not delivering, and you're saying, Enoh, don't blame Enoh, blame the person who's not showing up. But I'm the one paying the money.
Enoh, it's made simple when you look at the private schools. In how many of such cases do you hear of teachers not showing up? And they come in very, very early.
7 o'clock, 6:30, 6:45.
It's simple. There's a process in place. They are paid less in the private schools, but they deliver more.
And they work more.
They work more because there is monitoring. It's just as simple as that. So the governor is not required to do everything and be everywhere.
But
he's got the Ministry of Education. And the Ministry of Education should pattern out their work in a way that enhances coverage. Coverage of everything, coverage of facility, coverage of maintenance, coverage of supervision. The inspectorate division really knows what to do. There's the need for teacher training.
Yeah.
We've not even looked at that because I carried out the last teacher training. Okay, well, I was part of a teacher training sometime in 2009, 2008. And guess what they said to me?
13 years ago.
Yeah, I'm sure more trainings have been carried out. The one I was last part of, yeah, they were so happy, and they said to me, say to the ministry, say to the government, we want this every year. We want this like twice a year. Now you go to the private schools, trainings are carried out, refresher courses are carried out every year. Every term, every week, every month.
Yeah.
Because these people need to be upgraded. Learning is being upgraded globally, and so we must fit into the global time to raise globally friendly children. Yeah, and all of this, so it's not, let's not do the Nigerian thing of blaming and finger pointing. That's not the essence of this. We want to highlight areas that really need attention.
And you know, when you talk about monitoring, right? During campaigns, election campaigns, they monitor to the last units. Ward, local government. But now we're talking education and we're having setbacks in monitoring. I don't get it. It's not the same place.
We the people. So we don't seem to place this demand on who is leading us. And so we feel it's the teacher's responsibility to do. So human beings are naturally lazy. Okay, which is why it's a wintry day, it's a cold day, you don't want to go out. Most people, it's Sunday, it's raining, I don't want to go to church. Everyone wants to sleep more. We want to watch the TV, we want to have fun. That's human nature. It takes a lot of dedication and commitment to wake up and do what you ought to do. But then it's easier when you're supervised. You know, oh, my boss is going to frown at this. And that's what we're talking about. So systems need to be created, airtight systems. need to be created or put in place and monitored to ensure that the right results, so let's work with the results, the expected results. The results are being carried through, and that's what we're talking about.
All right. Have you heard from the so-called followers? They're very silent. They're all silent because they have nothing to contribute. Rose Wiki and Uche Secondus, you hear them shout on top of their voices. I'm yet to hear, well, he mentioned some names. Well, Ikechi, let's just wrap this up. What do you think the government needs to focus on at this time, with free education on one side and what is sustainable on the other side?
Yeah, we love to go back to the drawing board. I think it's time to sit back and evaluate. Feedback is required, and this is a kind of feedback system. We've had some of the responses of the people. Do we have town hall sessions? Let's get the principals together, because these ones are feeling the brunt directly. When there are teacher shortfalls, they feel somebody has to close up the gaps. When the children don't come to school because there's no sitting arrangement, someone has to. So let's get to sit down with them and re-engage and discuss. It would cost money to go down to Naira and Kobo, and then that would impact on the budget for the succeeding year. So we say, okay, the budget focuses on this, on that, on that. I laugh when some government, like of recent was in the news, the federal government said we're going to grow the budget for education. That's a very broad-ended, it's very bogus. Yeah. Because when you want to grow the budget for education, in what areas? There is health in education. So if you want to re-equip the hospitals or the dispensaries, that's fine. Yeah. If you want to improve infrastructure,
take away blackboards and marker boards.
Yeah, but even that has to be properly evaluated. Why are you doing that? So communicate. So when you interact directly, teachers are not slaves. Children in public schools are not slaves. Yes. So we must accord them the same sense of respect that they deserve, to give them dignity, because it's a thing that you must acquire in school. You're not just coming to learn mathematics, you're coming to learn life, to engage with life. So your self-esteem is also being built while in the school process. So you must learn and grow to interact, to compete with your neighbors out there in the world and win the same level. So there should be a standard platform. Standardization should be a thing. So the government of this should go back, sit back, re-strategize, re-evaluate where the gaps are, and find ways to fill up the gaps. Just because you want to create that successful student, that great student that goes out there in the world and becomes a good representative, a good ambassador of the state and the nation.
Thank you very much, Ikechi Nwogu, for your time. My name is Enoh Enigma. You've heard it. When it's time to discuss politics, the voices raised up, come up. But when it's time to discuss the things that affect our very lives and our future, we are silent. The ball is in your court. Good morning.